pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Tom, would you take roll, please?
I sure will. Chairman Fox.
Here.
Vice Chairman Mitchell.
Here.
Secretary Murphy is here. Trustee McMillan.
Here.
Commissioner Grissom.
Here.
Commissioner Mayer.
Here.
And Commissioner Ekman.
Here.
All right, thank you very much. Next up, approval of our meeting agenda.
So moved.
Support.
Motion from Mitchell, second from McMullen. Any changes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next up, approval of meeting minutes.
I make a motion to approve our meeting minutes of March 9th, 2023.
Support.
Motion from Grissom, second from Murphy. Any changes to those minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Call to the public. Thinking none tonight. First up, item 7A, site plan PD application 23-003, plan development, concept plan with a detached single-family residential community and commercial area. Going to be called Highland Reserve Plan Development. You guys want to come on up, whoever wants to speak this evening. What we'll do tonight is we'll turn the floor over to our planning director. We'll allow him to introduce the topic and then anything that you would like to add. And then I think we'll follow through and take a look at this staff review letter that we have. Hopefully you have that. So with that, we'd like, Troy, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Let me just start off by explaining where this property is located. This is a zoning map of Heartland Township. So if you started from the intersection of US 23 and M59, from that intersection going east on M59, not quite to Pleasant Valley and Fenton Road, there is a 39, almost 40 acre piece right here on the south side of M59 near Cundy Road. So this is the property that we're going to be talking about as this development we're going to be discussing tonight. Let me show you the project, if you will. So this is that property here, 39 acres, and as we mentioned, it's primarily a single-family residential development. So all of this is single-family residential, and then this 1.9 acre piece here would be the commercial component. The applicant is proposing to develop this as a planned development. The current zoning of CA certainly would not permit this type of development. So the planned development, just to walk you through that process, the initial step of a planned development is the applicant would present a concept. It's an idea, a thought of something they're proposing to do. The Planning Commission provides feedback. There's no formal decision made at the conceptual review. This project also then moves on to the Township Board for comments. Again, no formal decision is made at the Township Board. If it is deemed worthy of moving forward with the project, the next phase would be the preliminary plan phase. Things would get much more detailed. The plans would be more detailed. The criteria, the standards as part of that plan development would all be incorporated into that preliminary phase. The township would hold a public hearing. We would do noticing for this development. Residents would have an opportunity to speak, or if they chose to, the Planning Commission would make an actual formal recommendation. It would move on to the Township Board, where the board would also make a formal determination on the preliminary phase. And assuming that went well, the remaining phase would be the final phase. That phase is sometimes generally referred to as the legalese phase. At that point, we're really no longer looking at site plans. We're looking at master deed documents, plan development agreement documents, easement documents, documents like that. So the plan review is very heavy at that preliminary phase. Right now with this project, it's the very beginning, the conceptual review. So that's the process that's before us. Just to quickly highlight this plan that you see, M59 at the top. This is Heartland Glen Lane at the west boundary. This is where Redwood Apartments is currently under construction. What they're proposing is a connection, a road connection that would come in. All of these single-family detached units shown in this green area, these I'll call it a light brown beige colored, these would be the kind of the footprints. These are rental units. They're single-family homes that are detached that would be available for rent. And then these are the site condos or lots for the owner-occupied single-family homes. It would be the same homes in either location, and there's a variety that you've seen in the materials. And they've also incorporated some pathways that meander through here, and of course sidewalks on both sides with a connection further to the east as well as a connection to the south. That is the project in a very quick nutshell. That is the process, again, in a nutshell, and I'll be available to answer any questions you might have.
Great, thank you, Troy. Well, if you'd like to introduce yourself and your project, that would be appreciated.
Thank you. Mike West with Green Development Ventures and Alan Edwin Homes at 2186 East Center Avenue in Portage, Michigan. Thank you, Troy, for the introduction of this development plan. What I can do is I can speak a little more in detail of some of the elements of the plan, and probably the first one is these two different residential components that Troy was mentioning. So on your plan on that sheet, on my map, they look yellow to these eyes, but it might be something different. But those yellow boxes in the northern portion of the property, what we're anticipating there and what we've done in a couple other communities that have been very successful, it's a single deed rental project. So they're single family detached homes, but they're all on a single deed. They're not subdivided. They're offered for rent. And they've been extremely successful in a couple communities that we've done. We recently had another one approved in Woodhaven, downriver Detroit area. So it's the same product that we're building in the site condominium portion, but these are exclusively rentals. And the way the rentals work is you rent the home, but we have a management company, Copper Bay. It's called Copper Bay as our leasing company that will maintain all the grounds. So we maintain the exterior of the homes. We irrigate and mow all the lawn areas around them. The individual renters are responsible for just, shoveling their driveways out. We don't do their individual private driveways and the sidewalk in front of their house, just like anybody in the site condominium would be obligated to do. The boxes that you show, I know that was something that Troy brought up in his memo. Let me just talk to you a little bit about the boxes. They're intentionally boxes to represent a building envelope. So it's a 50 by 50 building envelope. That's what those yellow boxes are. And we have probably 2 dozen different home products that will fit within that footprint. So we don't plan on using it all on every site, but it gives us flexibility. We have home product that varies between 32 and 34 feet wide at our narrowest, out to 50 or even wider than 50, but most of it's in that 34 to 50 foot range. So it gives us a lot of flexibility to have that that footprint there to place whatever we want in there. We would even have the option to put like third stall garage on some of them as well. So within that northern third, it's 35 of the 100 units. What we're proposing for setbacks, the front setback would be 25 feet from the right-of-way. We have a rear setback of, well, it'd be 25 foot on the interior streets, 80 feet from M59 for the buffer. The rear setback, we identify at 20 feet, but really, it's a lot more than that when you look at it, because they don't have individual lot lines like you would in the site condominium portion. But we're keeping it at 20 feet. That's consistent with what we have in the site condo. And then we're looking at a 10-foot separation between those boxes. Again, we're not going to use the whole boxes, so there might be a couple homes that are 10 feet apart, but it isn't going to be that. The whole length of houses is not going to be 10, 10, 10, 10, because we're not going to use that 50-foot width building envelope. When it comes to the remainder of the property, as Troy indicated, everything that's kind of in the white boxes, that's going to be a traditional subdivision, site condominium. 65 units, I believe. Yes, 65 lots, if you will. Minimum lot sizes are 60 foot wide by 7,200 square feet. And again, similar setbacks. We're looking at 25 feet from the front, 80 foot from M59, and then 20 in the rear. We're proposing 5-foot side yard setbacks, so there'll be 10-foot separation. But again, it's not shown on that one, but we're going to have a width of 50 feet to play with that allows that product variation again. So 60-foot wide lot, 5 and 5, we're going to have 50, but we're not going to use all 50 on all those lots. So we're not going to have it maxed out at 50-foot wide product across that side. Just, again, gives us flexibility on home product and third stall garages, things like that we can add. We gave a real brief sample portfolio of homes. I think you may have seen it. It's just has 5 of our units. We probably have 25 that would fit there with various elevation packages depending on what it's desired by the individual owner. Ranch, 2-story, bi-level. We have 3 different product types. Again, it will vary on. In the rental community, we'll do a mixture. In the site condo, it'll probably be driven by what the buyer wants, and we'll have some specs in there as well. We don't do as much ranch as we used to do. It's primarily 2-story is what the bulk of our product is. As far as just like price points, in the rental community, we're typically in that $2,300, $2,400, $2,500 a month range for the single-family detached homes. For the site condo where you'd purchase them, they would probably be upper 2s to, and low end, upwards wherever from there through the 300s primarily. We try to hit that market that has the sweet spot, I guess as we call it. It's the widest market that we can hit. More intended for starter homes, move-up homes, young professionals, small families that are just getting started. My wife and I still drove by the house we first bought after we got married, and it looks tiny right now, but when we moved in, it was a mansion for us. It was 1-car garage, 1,040 square feet. So these will be a little bigger than that, but they'll be in that starter range nowadays. Open space, just a real quick summary of open space. About just under 16 acres of it is going to be in open space, approximately 40% of the overall site. We're going to do our best to preserve all the natural features that are on site. A lot of it's farmed, but there's some nice natural features on their property as well. Heartland Glen Lane has a nice tree line along that. East side, we want to retain that. There's a large kind of wooded area with some wetlands in it. In the western portion of the site, we want to retain that. Southeast corner, same thing, some wetlands down there, some field and some woods as well. We're going to preserve those areas. We're not going to get in any wetlands. We had wetland delineation. We're going to stay out of the wetlands. Obviously, that's just we deal that with some sites when we can avoid it. We like to avoid it because we don't have to deal with eagle. Nothing personal, but only adds about a year to the project. We can get it constructed. We're going to have sidewalks on both sides of all the interior streets. We also show a natural mode walking trail that kind of extends from the northwest corner of the property there by where we have the box number 14, kind of going to meander around that wetland area, come down to that cul-de-sac at Cardale, connect to the sidewalk, and then when you get to the corner of Cardale and Edmore Road, it's going to go around that open space area as well. So we have, right there what Troy's outlining. Our plan is to put natural walking trails through those open space areas, place some benches strategically along there to give some overlooks of the woods and the wetland. Landscaping, we're planning on doing a a berm and some plantings in that 80-foot buffer along M59. We're going to, I don't know exactly what the height of the berm will be. We'll get that with the preliminary plan, but it'll probably range between 4 and 6 feet in height. We'll probably try to do it as a earth form, you know, meandering earth form as opposed to just a straight berm. Put a mixture of evergreens and deciduous on there to kind of soften the back of those homes to the residents or to the road and vice versa, you know, so that the cars don't have, or the people who live there don't have the sound and sights of the vehicles. The homes will be slightly lower than Highland Road. So it varies. I think on the east side, there's a little bit more of a difference, and then as you go west, it comes up a little bit. So we'll, when we get into the final grading, we'll figure out where good berms are going to be located, and we'll position them accordingly on the preliminary plan. Street trees, we'll have street trees along each lot. Then we're going to, again, try to do as best we can to preserve everything else that's natural, that has some value out there. Access, as Troy said, we're proposing an access from Heartland Glen Lane, kind of opposite the one of the drives, I think, to Redwood, and then one off of Highland Road on the eastern portion of the property. I had the conversation with Troy earlier. Our engineer, Diffin Engineering, says that Livingston County is accepting public roads. He's already had some preliminary conversations with them, so we're going to propose these as public streets internally. If for some reason they don't want to accept those public streets, they tell us so, we'll make them private streets, and we'll just have to build them per their standard, because that's the standard for private streets anyway. Public water, sanitary sewer will serve it. Stormwater will follow the Drain Commission's requirements for stormwater. We're kind of showing 3 detention basins in 3 different locations on the site, and then there's some rear yard drainage that's required by the County Drain Commission as well. Other than that, I would be more than happy to try to answer any questions. I'm sure you have a few.
All right. So what we'll do is we'll just use as an outline form the staff review letter. You do have a copy of that dated March 16th. And it'll kind of make sure we cover some of the points or all of the points. So if we take a look at that on page 2 or packet page 6, down at the bottom, we've got the proposed concept plan. I think the first thing coming up here is probably a discussion or at least an introduction from Troy on this corner lot, this commercial piece, and
Yeah, so just to kind of let you know, the current owner of this property is looking to sell everything other than like 1.9 acres up here. The owner is proposing to retain that, and the owner has said, has indicated they prefer to do some commercial, and it's been somewhat vague. And so the applicant you see here before you, Mr. West, is, really has no control over that piece. They're looking at the remainder of this property, and they're proceeding with their project. But we, as staff, have said, we really just can't just leave this behind as a CA zoned. It probably doesn't even meet the CA zoning requirements. This really, and we're not interested in doing a separate PD for a 1.9 acre piece. We should probably incorporate this property with the PD, which means these two will now have to work together, and this owner will have to develop, as part of the plan development, some of their architectural standard. They may not have a site plan that shows how it lays out, but something that shows these are the architectural standards that will apply here. These are the other standards that will apply. When a development is ready, we'll have plan development standards that would apply to that. So we have had that conversation with the applicant, somewhat with the owner, and what we're doing is just making a note here. Staff believes this should be incorporated at the next phase of this project as it moves forward, if that makes sense.
could they change it to a 2-acre CA zone parcel and not be part of the PD?
They
Then they would
could.
comply.
They could make it a 2-acre piece and say, well, you just get that 2-acre, you can have one house on there.
Yeah.
And you just live with that. But I don't think that's what they want. I think they want that as commercial, so then we as a township then get forced to, do we want to deal with a 2-acre or 1.9-acre planned development by itself down the road?
Well, it's unlikely the township would, well, it's a board decision, but we haven't done PDs down at 1.9 acres.
No.
So that would be a board decision.
Mr. Chairman? The seller, Mr. Yaldo, is here tonight, so we've had some conversations, and he's, I think, in agreement that he can come up with some concepts for development of that property, and he's here tonight if you want to have any preliminary conversations with him. I told him if he didn't show up, I was going to offer gold-plated buildings and
Yeah.
all kinds of good stuff, so he ended up showing up, so.
We don't need to get into the discussion of if you guys are going to work together and
Yeah.
go down the road of what staff recommends. I think we'd all be fine with that, wouldn't we?
Yeah. Okay.
So we're good.
All right.
We're good. So I've now turned over to page 3. I was in the site plan review committee meeting on this project, and we got into the rentals and the for sales and all those kinds of things. And is there a reason why the rentals are first versus the for sale units?
You mean on the northern portion of the site as opposed
Yeah,
to
well,
interior?
let's take a look at the chart, down about 2/3 of the way down. You know, you've got it phased out there. It's pretty much a rental community until we get to phase 2.
And that phasing line, to be honest with you, that was determined by our engineers because of utility availability. So I think that's more, it's not necessarily that we want to do one before the other, but I think it's more on how utilities are going to get extended there. I can't speak specifically to why that phasing was there, but I can get more information on that. And it may still change. This is our kind of preliminary phasing. When we come back with a preliminary plan, a more detailed preliminary plan, we'll have it called out. But the thought of having the rentals on that portion, it was twofold. Is we think it's a good transition from Highland Road and from Redwood to the west and the commercial piece to the interior property. Another thing that I guess we didn't think about initially, but I thought about it afterwards. I said, hey, this is going to work out pretty good. The rental part is, we do all underground irrigation. We maintain all those grounds. So as opposed to in a subdivision where you have different levels of maintenance, if you will, around single-family homes. I was telling Troy today, every summer when it gets dry, I feel really bad because I don't have underground irrigation in my yard. My 2 neighbors do. So guess who's got the brown patches and yeah, that's me. Next to everybody else has got beautiful lawns. Nice thing about this will all be managed and maintained by our management company. So we're going to irrigate it, we're going to mow it all consistently. There's going to be requirements that the people that rent can't do things in the backyard that would face Highland that would normally do it. You know, you can't have play structures, you're not going to have outbuildings, you're not going to have boat storage. We're going to be able to regulate that through the rental agreements that we have with them. So it'll turn out that the backside of those homes is not going to look, the backyards of those homes aren't going to look as bad as they might if they were under individual ownership.
Any comments about rental own thoughts?
I think there's too many rentals here in the township.
Well, this is a little bit unique in that we don't have a lot of household rentals like this. We don't have a lot of modern new construction where you have renting whole houses. Isn't that correct? We would have a lot of apartment rentals, but this is a little different concept. If you wanted to rent a house in Heartland right now, you would probably be on a standalone somewhere, right?
Yeah, and to be very honest with you, we didn't realize what the demand was for detached single-family rental homes, because you're exactly right. There's not, I don't know any other builder who's building new homes and then renting them right away. Normally, you have an older home that might be scattered in a neighborhood that's being rented. You have attached product like Redwood. Redwood is all attached product to the west. We found in the very few that we've done that there's a tremendous desire for people to rent detached single-family homes. I was telling Troy we have a small development that we started down in Three Rivers, Michigan, which is south of Kalamazoo, 12 homes on a cul-de-sac. I mean, we had them all rented out before we had them done, built. That's how quickly it was. And Three Rivers is not a big town. It's a small town about 20 miles south of Kalamazoo. And when we looked at the leasing rate, the household incomes were just staggering. We couldn't believe it. We thought there was a certain niche that was going to be looking for it. On the low end, $85,000 household income a year. On the high end, it was like $330,000. So there's people clearly that were renting these new homes that could buy if they wanted to, but whatever their circumstances in life were, maybe they're short-term, maybe they're contract workers for Stryker or Pfizer, which is right up in Portage where I live. There's just different circumstances. Maybe there's divorce situations where they still want to have their kids in a neighborhood, but yet not own a house. So, yeah, we don't have a lot of them, but the ones we have are extremely popular. And they offer something that's not, I don't know of any other builder, to be honest with you, building brand new homes for rent.
Okay.
Is this the same product that you have in that?
Yeah. It'll look the same. The thing is you're going to drive through, home product's going to be the same.
So you have them in Three Rivers, and did you say somewhere else?
Woodhaven, and then we have 2 locations down in Indiana, South Bend area, I believe, South Bend, Mishawaka area. But we have several others that are in the works that are different phases, so.
Essentially, you'll drive through this community and not realize that 1/3 of it is rental and 2/3 is not.
That's correct. And actually, like I said, the rental part might look more consistent, it's consistently maintained than the individual homes, because you're going to have 65 different homeowners that might have different levels of when they cut their grass and how they maintain their yards and so forth.
Okay. Any other comments on that? Okay. Staff at the bottom of the page there just made the comment, is that building envelope to include everything like a deck, like a swimming pool, or those types of things? Is that the intent?
Yeah, it's 50 by 50 is what that building footprint is. I'm trying to think, there might be a circumstance where you'd have a patio or maybe a deck that would extend further in depth, but not in width or anything. That's going to be where the building, probably in 95% of the cases, will be contained within that box. And if anything, it's going to might be elongated a little further north, or rear, I guess.
Troy, any input on that? I know you've had
Well-
situations before.
Yeah, so what we're asking for is showing like an example of the site condo units with their building envelope and how the house sits with a deck or with a patio, so you can kind of see how that fits. And I guess in the same, showing a house in that building envelope for the rental with a deck or with a condo to show you how it fits on within those envelopes. So
Okay.
what we're getting to is at the preliminary phase, having something like that be incorporated in so everybody can see how that would fit.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. We can do that.
All right. I've turned to page 4 if you're all ready to do so. Troy, you want to touch on these? I know that Mr. West there touched on the setbacks and all that. You want to touch on that for us again, please?
So you've got a couple charts. One is setbacks for the rentals. The other one, just below it, would be the setbacks for the owner-occupied condominiums. Both are the same at 25 feet. And then the first thing you'll know on the side is, well, there's a difference, 10 feet on the rentals, 5 feet on the owner-occupied. Well, really, it is the same. The rentals are 10 feet apart is what they're indicating, whereas the owner-occupied condos would be 5 feet from the common property line. And so then the adjoining property would also be 5 feet, so there'd be 10 feet in between them. With respect to the rear yard, the condo, owner-occupied condo units are showing a 20-foot rear setback, whereas the rental units, 80 feet is listed, but that's really in this area. So they're maintaining an 80-foot setback from the Highland Road or M59 right-of-way. The these aren't on properties, so there's no true setback to a rear property line, because there really is no rear property line. I don't know what this distance would be between these ones, but the 80 feet is not truly what applies throughout this whole thing. It's primarily showing that the 80 foot is a required setback from M59, so then they're just showing we'll meet that 80 foot setback, if that makes sense.
For the rentals, it'll be more than that even, because you can see how it lines up with Lot 1 in the upper right-hand corner of that map. That's the 80-foot setback where that line is. These homes will probably get another 20, 30 feet on that, so they'll probably be at least 100 back from the right-of-way.
Okay. Questions on that?
Yeah, I have a question regarding the between the homes. So it goes to the fire department's memo. Is that been, you want to wait till we get to that fire department memo, or?
That's up to you guys when you guys want to talk about that.
So let's go to page 15 if we can. Might be a different page, actually. It's a bit confusing.
Yeah, packet page 15.
Yeah, packet page, thank you. So reference is made to, I don't know if everyone has had a chance to read through that, but for safety reasons and for precedent-setting reasons, and I guess I'm just curious, what folks' thoughts are there. The fire department has a lot to say here, and I think that our highest priority has to be for safety. So I want to make sure that we keep that in mind, whether setbacks or maybe building the house is different, as he notes near the bottom.
Troy, is there any reference in the Heartland Township Ordinance 76 that says one of the critical reasons for the 10-foot setback is to aid in preventing the spread of fire? Is that, I don't recall that in the ordinance.
No, the letter from the Heartland area, Heartland Deerfield Fire Authority references ordinance number 76, which is the township zoning ordinance. And there is a 10-foot setback identified most commonly in respect to single-family residential, where you would have a detached accessory structure, maybe a detached garage or pole barn, that accessory structure shall be 10 feet away from any other structure, including the principal structure on the house or on that same property. We have numerous setbacks in our zoning ordinance. Virtually every zoning district that we have has different setbacks. So the only one that really hones in on a 10-foot is that exact one of 10 feet. And it does not specify the purpose of that. However, in speaking just generally about that, if you decided not to have a detached garage and you wanted to attach, you could do so, but then the building code would just require some upgraded drywall. They call it a firewall, but it's a thicker drywall in that common wall separating the garage from the house.
That'd be a 1-hour fire-rated wall, I think, or
I believe. I'm not a building inspector.
Me neither.
But
So does this mean that this reference here to ordinance 76 essentially doesn't actually apply in the sense that this is a planned unit development, right? So,
Well, it's just not stated correctly in that it's one of the reasons. It just isn't in the ordinance.
I see.
That's not why the 10-foot setback is there.
So they're just, the Heartland Fire Department is just saying, we want 10 feet. We
They're
think it's
taking the
safest.
liberty to say that.
Right, I
Correct.
see, okay.
Now, I would like to add that we have these narrower setbacks on a very major development that has been reviewed by the fire department over the last numerous years that has not had a problem with this setback. And that would be your Mayberry project.
So you're saying that project has setbacks of 10 feet or less?
It has the 5-foot,
The 5 foot? Yeah.
10 feet between buildings. And we're talking hundreds of them.
Do you know if they did anything in relation to
No.
improved fire? No, okay. Yeah.
So do you build these homes this close in other communities?
Yeah.
So for me as an individual, just as we do with our drive-throughs on our stacking requirements, we allow we require 10. We allow applicants to come in with proof that 10 is not necessary. There is no ordinance that we have in the township on this setback issue. If you could provide communities that provide that and any requirements they have, then I would be willing to live with those.
Just as a little background, I previously was a municipal planner like Troy with City Porters for 22 years, and we've had these conversations with the fire marshal and the building department. My understanding, and I'm not a building inspector either, but I often pretend to be when I'm talking to people, 10 feet is the minimum building code separation between single-family homes. So the fire department doesn't like it because it's close. They'd rather have 20 if they could, or 30 if they could, just for safety reasons. They're thinking worst case scenario all the time. I dealt with lots of fire marshals. They're always thinking worst case, and that's the way they think, the way they're wired. But the minimum separation is 10 feet. And what I talked to Troy when I was driving in today, and I wish I would have grabbed it. I have a graphic that kind of shows how these homes, we have a project up in Cedar Springs, White Pine Trails. We have the same thing with 5-foot setbacks. And they were concerned, we showed our different home product, what it would look like laid out along the street. And like I said, we don't use it all. So it's not like you have the whole wall 5 feet or 10 feet from the whole wall of the house. It's not like that. There's bump outs of the homes depending on which one you do. Sometimes it'll just be a portion of the house, maybe a bump out on a garage that is within 10 feet. Sometimes you'll have 12, 15 feet on the side setback. If we put a 30-some foot home product on these lots, we're going to have, we're going to have 10 feet and then maybe another 7 or 8 feet on the other side. So it does not, I can't think of any example we have where it just 10 feet all the way along the line. It varies. And I think that 10 foot is the building code requirement. And I know the fire marshals just don't like it. I understand. I understand from working with them for over 2 decades, their concerns, but it's a building code issue. And, my garage is attached and there's a 1 hour, I guess, like you said, firewall, double drywall, but unfortunately, I don't think there's draft stops in the ceiling, in the ceiling of the garage. We had our neighbor's house, their car caught on fire in the garage, went up through the rafters, never went through the wall, went through the rafters, and then collapsed the ceiling down on the house. And that was a building, building code didn't require the draft stop or whatever out there, and that was something that the fire marshal explained to me is that's a problem in a lot of residential constructions. They don't have those stops up in the.
Well, I think if you could provide, for me as an individual, it would help if you could provide communities, and I don't mean the city of Detroit or Dallas. I'm talking suburban-type communities like we have that are providing this type of setback, that we could take a look at this. This has been an on and off issue for years. If we change this now, we have a huge issue on the neighboring parcel of how many other acres it is with hundreds of them, because that subdivision, that development is being done this way, as being proposed. So.
And we could increase our setbacks. We could go 6 feet on the lots or 12 feet or 15 feet. All that does is it reduces the flexibility we have on home product. So instead of being able to offer more varieties, it shrinks it down. It minimizes our product offerings. That's where the
Well, I think you
negative
need
is.
to, for me, you need to just show your case.
Yeah, well, I'll get some
For me,
documentation.
the board ultimately makes the decision. There are 6 other people here. I've been doing this a long time. This topic has been between the fire department and the township board for almost as long as I've been here.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get some documentation. I can even get maybe it to Troy earlier rather than wait for a preliminary plan submittal. I'll get what we have to him as soon as I can assemble it.
Okay.
So let me speak to this. So the sample homes that you provided in our packet, there is not one of those homes that exceeds 40 foot in length.
In width.
Well,
Yeah,
whatever you.
50 feet. 50 feet.
So,
Yeah.
so
I would ask that you also provide the largest home that you would be proposing to build here. And in reference to what Chairman Fox has said, I'm looking for, to satisfy my thoughts, I'm looking for a picture of the development. I want to visually see what a 10-foot setback between homes appears as a picture, not as a drawing.
Got it.
So,
Okay.
so that's probably one of my bigger issues with this development.
Okay. Anybody else?
If you're going to bring images, I'd love to see some satellite images of these other neighborhoods, including the ones that have rentals.
Don't know if I'll be able to get you aerial photos on that because it's so new, but I should be able to get you aerial photos of some developments where we've had 5-foot side yard setbacks. And you'll see from the aerial as well, is we didn't use it all. Some will be tight, some will not be. So I'll try to assemble that as well.
Okay. Sue, any comment? Anybody, anything down here? All right. Just moving down the page. The other thing to note here, I suppose, is under the proposed density, maximum of 4 units per acre, they're at 2.56. Comments on that? All right, moving over to page 5. Troy, why don't we just give all this CDE stuff, traffic, roads, internal circulation to you, since you've got the computer and the site plan up.
Okay, so what we're essentially trying to point out is this is a, Heartland Glen Lane is a private road, and we'll have to work to make sure we get authorization for this connection, and we'll end this here, and we'll be establishing that we have a future connection here and a future connection to the south. And we don't want to run into these scenarios where maybe that connection doesn't occur for many years. So we'll be looking to create some documents that'll bind that these connections occur. And the homeowners association, when they then take charge, can't somehow prevent or block that from occurring. And then lastly, up here on M59, this is the state of Michigan Department of Transportation jurisdiction. They'll have to work and get permits and approvals from MDOT prior to the preliminary phase. So this could affect, maybe that location works, maybe it doesn't, I'm not sure. And as part of that, there'll be a traffic report. And that traffic report will outline the impact that this development has, traffic patterns that come out of here, how many end up taking right turns, how many do U-turns and head back the other way, and what impact that may have on M59, any improvements that have to be made onto M59 as a result of that. So they'll have a traffic impact analysis, they'll have talks with the MDOT if they want these to be actually roads approved from and part of the Livingston County Road Commission's jurisdiction. They'll have to have meetings with that entity and to make sure that they're okay with it. So that's about it, really.
I do.
Questions?
So, Troy, included in this traffic study, would it be required that this commercial parcel, at least from a preliminary standpoint, show access to M59?
So your question is, well, back up. Should the traffic analysis include this? Yes. Would it or require a connection from here to M59? No, it doesn't. You're not required to have a connection on M59. They may want to do that, and then, of course, that would need MDOT approval as well. They may very well come out here. I'm not sure what they're doing on this property, but there's no mandate by us at the township that they have a connection to M59. And I don't believe a traffic study would mandate that either.
Would the traffic study ask what that commercial property be used as?
You can do, through the ITE analysis, you can do general, there's different categories in there that you can just assume it's general commercial. Maybe if they know it's a gas station, they could incorporate some of that into there. If they know it's retail or restaurants, they could analyze that from a number of different ways to estimate how much trip generation would come from there.
Okay.
I don't think you're looking at a lot. It's a 1.9 acre piece. You've got maybe a couple thousand square feet of building here we're talking about. 5,000 square feet of building, maybe something like that.
Well, what I was thinking of is that if that parcel had access to M59, then that little area, which is bound by M59, Cundy, Heartland Glen Drive, we have a light commercial strip mall farther to the west that all has traffic coming and going. Yeah, I'm thinking that becomes a pretty busy little corner with all of these apartment units, both Redwood and this proposed development, all trying to come and go. So that's why I asked the question if that traffic generation study would require someone to depict what that parcel is going to actually be used for or have access to it. So,
Yeah, it would identify what improvements on the road need to be made to accommodate. But at this, I don't even think they know what they, it's not as common anymore, but it used to be fairly common that people would build a commercial retail building without any idea who's going to be in there. That doesn't occur anymore because things have changed and you need to have a couple tenants secured before you have the funding to move forward with it. But that didn't used to be the case 20 years ago.
okay.
Okay.
So on that note, I think a really good subject, and we can't tell what the road commission is going to do, but I can't imagine that they would allow access from that commercial into the neighborhood, if I can call it that. Is that correct, or should I not assume that?
You're saying with the road commission?
Or whoever would make that determination based on the traffic studies. How do you pronounce that east-west route?
Abernathy?
Thank you. Easy for you.
I don't think the road commission would, I don't know why the road commission would have concerns about this coming out onto this road. Now, the residents may not want commercial traffic, but that's not your question. Your question is the road commission prohibiting. I don't know why they would do that.
My guess would be that primary access would probably come off Heartland Glen. You almost, I can't imagine the MDOT allowing another access drive that close to that intersection. So you're probably looking at like a looped system. When you're coming off Heartland, maybe if it's going to be a gas station, you probably need two drives because you're going to have a circulation of the tanker trucks. But you drive them down M59 and they control access pretty good because you got to keep that traffic flowing during the busy time. So it'd be my guess would be that they would probably not allow another access on 59.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All right. So you had already mentioned sidewalks on both sides, benches along the mode paths, utilities. Troy, you just want to touch on pattern book concepts about creating one? G. Sorry.
Okay. I was back on sidewalk. So the pattern book, what we're looking for there is the building materials. That'll be what are the homes built out of, colors, And then the commercial, we would probably need to see what are they looking at architecturally for the commercial, what's that going to be built out, what's it going to look like generally speaking, what would be the standards for that, lights, if they have street lights in their development, what those street lights look like, how tall they are, what type of light they, probably an LED, I'm guessing, I don't know, but, and any of the general design standards, maybe even landscaping, maybe if they're doing specific common area landscaping, how that looks, type of plant materials. So that pattern book would essentially become like a zoning ordinance for this development, so that we can, as we move forward, that kind of becomes the regulations here.
Okay. Questions on that? Comments? All righty. H, open space at the bottom of packet page 9, page 5 of the letter. Must have 25, 10% of it must be usable. Looks like you're up at around 40.85. I think the staff is just looking for accountability of how you get to all of that. Landscaping, looks just, you had mentioned the buffer. It looks like just watch your tree height and caliper size. Anything else?
Just the comment that we've been talking about for the last couple of years on the street trees. Great that you got the street trees. We like to put them between your sidewalk and curb, where you've got your utilities, and we've kind of struggled with that. But we've just found when they're closer to the street, they're a lot more effective.
Okay.
Just if you guys could work that through with your engineer.
So between the curb and the sidewalk in that green area?
Yep.
Yep, that's typically where we place them.
And your plan right now is showing them outside on your landscape, and they're not within that zone.
Yeah, the engineers typically have the water and the sewer lines in there and don't want the street trees on top of them. So there's a conflict, but we've gone through this, 20 times, and that's where they are to be located.
If I was preparing to plan, it would have been there, but Matt different. I'll have Matt flip them back into the
Can't make everybody happy all the time. Engineer's not going to win that one.
And not that it's part of landscaping, but then that kind of builds into the distance from the sidewalk to the face of the garage, that there's enough room to park a car there, length in which I'm sure you're used to.
Full-size car.
A full-size car.
Pickup truck. A pickup truck. So yeah, that is a thing. The front of the garage to the back to the sidewalk. That you can get
25 feet.
Okay.
Minimum.
25?
Yeah,
25,
so you're going to be able to, even if you drive a big old truck, you'll be able to get that in and not have it overhanging the sidewalk.
All right.
so.
Yeah,
That's
that's
good.
good. Appreciate that.
Troy, you want to touch on recognizable benefits real quick?
So as part of a plan development, the township is sacrificing its zoning ordinance regulations, and there generally should be some sort of recognizable benefit to having a plan development for the community, something that goes above and beyond a normal development. A lot of standards are being waived. We've talked about setbacks. Certainly we're talking lot size significantly smaller than the CA zoning district currently allows. There's got to be some positive for the community as a whole to do that. Architectural standards could certainly be one. We've done that in our commercial areas, so I would encourage you to give that consideration, but just make sure you identify what you feel are your recognizable benefits.
Okay. Last, DPW, engineer, and fire authority letters. Any other comments on any of those?
So it probably wouldn't be fair for me not to bring up sidewalks. So internal sidewalks are great, right? Appreciate that. It's a walkable community that we're trying to create here, and M59 creates kind of a barrier because I don't know that there are sidewalks along the south side of M59. On the north side of M59, there is a walkway. It's kind of right up against the curb and gutter, so it's not maybe where I would put it if we were starting over.
Yeah.
And I don't know what Mayberry is gonna, we're almost maybe starting what Mayberry may look like, with this development that we're looking at here today. So,
That's a great point. I believe Mayberry has the sidewalk across the M59 frontage. So if you could take a look at the plan, Troy, and share it with them.
Yeah, they're showing.
They should,
It's kind of gray here.
Okay.
They're showing us, they
Okay.
ended, because that's the end of
That's
the
the end of
property.
the property.
Yeah.
And then they also show it kind of ending here, which really is the whole PD should include it to
the
extend out.
intersection.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I couldn't see that. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
It's not-
Well, I didn't catch it either.
Yeah, you don't have to stop at your property line. You can go all the way to Pleasant Valley and all the way to 23 if you wanted, but just saying.
I'll let our guys know.
If they run into an extra load of cement somewhere. Any other questions or comments? Overall, I think we should just send them out here with a quick comment from everybody. Overall concept, are you in support? You don't have to get into too much of the detail. Should they proceed with something like this? Sue?
I'm in support. I like the more concentrated housing and leaving the open space so it's not all divvied up. So I'm a proponent of this.
Okay. Jim? Any?
Yeah, I welcome the new development. Heartland definitely needs more rooftops. I do have some questions that didn't really fit into any of the categories. I would assume that the inches off of Hartley Glen Drive lines up with the neighboring subdivision to the west.
I believe it does, yeah. I believe there's two accesses on Redwood, and this would line with the northernmost.
In the one dead end to the east, Troy, is there, before I came in, got involved, is there a development that's already approved east of here? And would that driveway line up with their development?
There is a development that has received preliminary plan development approval, but not specific enough to where the exact road networks. So this applicant apparently would get first choice,
Okay.
and then when that one develops, they'll have to tie into it.
Great. I believe at the pre-preliminary meeting that the committee has, we brought up the privacy berm separating lots 1 through 13 from M59, that somebody was expressing that if these lots are sitting lower, they wouldn't really care to be driving along M59 and seeing all the, I know you said play structures weren't allowed, but the inflatable pools and all that kind of stuff. I think one idea that might work for both of us is that we could block the view even more if you made the berm taller. That would work for the community. And then on your behalf, you'd have a place to put all the excess topsoil. I'm sure Mr. Yaldo can attest from his developments and developments that I've worked on. Topsoil is usually a challenge to get rid of, and it becomes costly. So it might be a situation where you could use that topsoil there, make that berm a little taller, and works for everybody. The common pathway. You used the words natural walking trails. Can you describe that? Is that just a grass park pathway, or is it wood chips, asphalt, concrete?
Well, we try to stay away from like paved material, concrete or asphalt, because then it kind of takes away from maybe the natural element of it. What we've done in many other communities is there's a transition usually that comes off the sidewalk from the interior streets. So you're not going to have a natural trail, mode trail, if you will, coming up to the sidewalk. It's going to be a sidewalk stub, and then it transitions into a mowed path. And in other areas, they've typically mowed it if it's grass, and mow it every 2 weeks when they do or every week when they do the maintenance, or they might have sections of, we don't usually get into mulch path, because that stuff just, it's a maintenance headache. So it's either, it's some type of natural material depending on what the grounds are. A lot of times it's just mowed. If we could just mow it and keep it grass, but it's shorter than everything else and defines the walkability, that's what we typically do. but there's always a connection that comes off the sidewalk that's continuation of sidewalk. And it's usually defined with like some split rail. You know, so when you're coming up on it, the trail is defined with split rail. You turn, you walk on the sidewalk, and then you walk onto the natural path. We'll have to get the details more honed in for the preliminary plan, but that's typically what we've done in other communities. And the walkability of this and the open space, the common open space, is always the number one attraction from the people that buy us. They like having a smaller lot to maintain in return for larger common open space and walkability. Everybody can walk, just at every age. It's accessible and it's year-round.
Yeah. My concern was if it's just mowed grass, when you get behind lot 32 there, it would be hard to decipher, like, a timid person would be like, you know, I know this is dedicated for a pathway, but I feel like it's somebody's backyard.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
We definitely define it, and it just all depends on what the circumstances are. So I'll get some more definition with the preliminary plan.
I believe that does it for my question.
over-
I guess one more, the fire department, don't you ultimately have to please the fire marshal in order to get approval, right?
No,
No?
they don't have a vote.
Okay,
There's no fire code that requires this.
okay.
We've had this discussion between several people in the township.
Okay, that's all for my question.
All right. Mike?
Again, I'm in favor of the overall concept here. I think I have made it particularly clear that I have concerns with the 5-foot setback, so I'm very interested in seeing for myself what that visually looks like. And also this commercial corner, I have concerns about that. But overall, I think it's worth moving to the next phase for me.
Okay. Tom?
I can pretty much mimic what everyone said to this point. The idea is different, it's new, they have the rentals, and with family members that are trying to rent or buy houses, I can see that there could be a transitional need for a house, for sure. It's just different, I think, for us. But yeah, I approve the idea, the concept, for sure. A question I was going to interrupt with Commissioner Mayer is that the agreement of, so you would be cutting the lawns on the rental homes, is that
Correct.
correct?
Yeah.
But you wouldn't be cutting the lawns on the residential. Okay. That said, if you're cutting the path, the grass path that the Commissioner was referring to, would they cut that path through the whole development then, or just stop it? Yes.
Well, those are details that our attorney's going to have to help us work out how it works, because we're going to have an association, a homeowners association for the site condo, for the 65 site condo lots. And then you're going to have a management company for the 35 rentals. Those will be the same for a while, because the developer always manages the site. If this was all site condo, we would manage it until 80% occupancy or so, and then we could hand it off to the homeowners. But this one's going to be a little more unique because they have shared amenities. They have the shared path. You know, it's going to start in a rental community and end in the site condo community. So our attorneys will draft it. There'll probably be something in the master deed and bylaws that will reflect who mows it. But I imagine if our management company is mowing a third of it, they'll mow the trail if that's part of the, you know, they're going to have the crew out there, so they may as well just mow that trail.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought it would be uniform, and again, that would be more welcoming to know where the trail is, and it's all done once,
Correct.
one time the same day, so.
So that brings up another question. So where the walking path goes through the condos, is that an easement?
Where it goes through the open space through the site condos?
No, I'm over to the east, starting at lot 50, 52, 54. Does the walking path extend north of that point? Or does it just end there?
No, it stops at Melsetter.
Correct.
Like it stops at Melsetter.
It'll tee into the sidewalk there. There'll be a sidewalk along the south side of Melsetter, and that's where that trail's going to go. It's not going to go along the back sides of units 54 or 50 and 52 all the way up to, it's not going to go that.
Okay.
It's going to tie into the sidewalk, and then you're on that internal sidewalk network that will take
That's
you.
what I thought.
Yep.
But as Tom was talking there, I thought I had missed something. So, okay, very good.
Yeah, there's 4 connections, right by, next to lot 49, right there south of 15,
Yes.
in between 28 and 29, and then way up there in the northwest corner on the east, the west side of home 14, if you will.
Okay.
Tom, did you have anything else to add?
No.
How about you, Matt?
I like the concept. Like I mentioned, I like the rental concept. I can see in this day and age when a lot of people are living somewhere for 2 or 3 years, they don't want to put down roots because they have that kind of a job, and yet they don't want to live in an apartment. So I think that's probably pretty unique and a benefit. Of course, the open space is great, lower density than required. And, you know, just commenting on that fire thing, I would think that you obviously have a much longer history on that on this board, but it seems to me that's something that should be more under building code. It almost seems like it's out of your lane, you know, any more than how many, you know, fire alarms will be installed inside each home or, you know, smoke detectors. It seems like it should be constrained, not at a, I know that's not really maybe something for a major discussion, but it does seem odd that it would be at a planning commission level to be concerned about. You know, whereas other things like, you know, turning radius of a fire truck or something, those seem more suitable to a planning commission. But that's just my thought on the fire. I like it. I hope one of these ponds are a bass pond that I can fish with on the weekend. And,
Summer?
I like the concept, I'm just not keen on the rentals, even if there are homes. I would like to see more of the condos. You know, some for home ownership. Like I said, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but there are way too many rentals here in the township.
Okay. I support the project. I would like to see the list of communities you build these in with these distances and how they're similar. But other than that, I support the project. So
Thank
do you have anything else for us?
No, just thank you very much. This is a
Okay.
great process to come in here and meet with you guys initially on the pre-application, and then this gives us great direction before we plow too far into it with engineering, so thank you again.
All right. You have a great evening.
You too.
Thank you for coming. All right, item 7B, zoning amendment 22-001, ordinance amendment to landscape requirements, section 5.7, 5.11, and 5.26. Troy, probably best handled by you, but let me give you a heads up. I'm thinking the changes are just highlighted in yellow,
Yes. No, you're
and
exactly,
that's what we're going to talk about.
you're
If-
exactly
If we
right.
need to.
we can't do it all over again?
Yeah, we can't go through it all.
No.
Sorry, Matt.
So the changes that you're seeing there that are highlighted in yellow actually came from the work sessions that the planning commission had. For whatever reason, the copy that got sent when we had a packet in August did not incorporate those changes. And then that meeting got canceled, and we didn't have an available meeting until March. And when we did that packet, we just essentially said, well, let's just grab the packet that we did in August without realizing that that mistake was made at that point. And then as we got to looking at it, we discovered we didn't incorporate all of the comments. So what we've done is we brought it back to you. We're showing you in yellow those comments that came out of the work session. And I'll just leave it open if you've got questions or
So rather than go through them page by page, glance through them. If you have a comment on the yellow highlighted areas, let's bring it up. While important, they are definitely small in number.
Yeah.
first question. Sue, are you happy? No.
I move to.
Are there any comments about the yellow highlighted areas? Everybody comfortable with this? If so, there is a motion to be found on page 1 of that staff review letter.
I move to recommend approval of zoning amendment number 22-001, ordinance amendment to landscape requirements in section 5.7, dumpster enclosure, section 5.11, landscape and screening, and section 5.26 signs.
Support.
Motion from Commissioner Grissom, second from Commissioner Mitchell. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are moving past 8. No call to the public. Troy, planner report. Anything?
Just to let you know, we're picking the ordinance review committee up, and we're going to be meeting here, I think it's April 13th, to discuss, we have a draft solar ordinance, so we'll be discussing that, and that may also lead to discussions of other ordinances, and bring those back to the planning commission as well.
All right, thank you. Committee reports, comments, anybody? Not motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support?
Mitchell and Murphy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, and have a good night.